Hello, and thank you for joining me for the first ever Fabled book review. I am the Fabled Lionhart. Today I would like to discuss with you a new book released in 2022 entitled Random by author Penn Jillette. I should mention that for this review I did listen to the audiobook version of this title, narrated by Penn Jillette himself. You may be familiar with Penn as being one half of the famous comedy magic duo Penn and Teller. As a performer on stage and television, Penn is well versed in the art of storytelling. It should come as no surprise then when I say that Penn's narration stands out as one of the highlights of this audio production. His delivery never feels distracting, which is a good quality in a narrator, and the timbre of his voice I feel is well suited to the crime fiction genre in which his story takes place. Issues begin to creep in, however, when it becomes apparent that Penn's vocal performance often upstages much of his actual writing throughout this book's 7-hour and 14-minute duration. Allow me to give you some more of my general impressions before I get into spoilers. As a word of warning, this book does contain graphic content, including detailed descriptions of sex and violence. If these are topics that are uncomfortable for you as a reader, consider this to be your disclaimer. My overall feelings on this book can best be summarized as a bit of a mixed bag. The narrative offers an intriguing premise, but also seems to struggle with getting its ideas off the ground. Once the crux of the plot kicks off, what follows is a parade of characters who behave more like caricatures, and a truly off-the-wall story that fails to culminate in a satisfying conclusion. While there are moments of enjoyment to be found along the way, it's my opinion they come too few and far between to make up for the rest of the narrative's numerous shortcomings. Let's delve deeper into the pages so that I can explain my thoughts in further detail. From this point on, I will be discussing spoilers. Random is the story of a young man named Bobby Ingersoll, and his journey towards living a life ruled almost completely by chance. Things begin promisingly enough as we are along for the ride with Bobby, who finds himself in an extremely difficult situation. He and his entire family have just become the targets of a ruthless Las Vegas loan shark, to whom his father is indebted to for a sum totaling just over $2 million. Bobby sets out on a path that will see him blur the lines of right and wrong and participate in the biggest gamble he could ever imagine. These early chapters encompass what I believe to be the best sections the book has to offer. The stakes couldn't be higher when, after a near-botched robbery and getting caught up in the middle of a rival gang war, he has managed to amass a mere 1/4 of the payment required to save his family from certain death. His all-or-nothing wager on the day his father's debt becomes due had me lingering in anxious anticipation and fear for Bobby's future. Unfortunately, the momentum built up in these early sections begins to peter out shortly thereafter. Once Bobby's gamble is successful, the real story begins. Bobby becomes determined to leave all decisions, of which he is not 100% certain, up to the roll of his dice. Through one of these chance rolls, Bobby decides to spend some of his surplus winnings on taking over a private investigation office, with the hopes of helping people who have otherwise run out of luck. At this moment, I thought there was an opportunity for the story to take off in an interesting direction. But sadly, the direction it does go in mostly serves to keep the narrative's main antagonist, the loan shark Fraser Ruppert, and his gang of miscreants relevant in the plot. This wouldn't be so bad, save for the fact that not a lot of time is spent on developing Ruppert into more than a one-note villain. The most we get to know about him is that he has a strong affinity for scare tactics. He also really doesn't like it when people constantly mispronounce his name, a joke that goes on well past the point of it being funny by the end. Soon after reopening his newly acquired PI agency, Bobby takes on his first client. He investigates the case of a craps shooter named Bill Wills, who has recently been accused of cheating at casino games by use of shaved dice. Bobby's digging into Bill's situation quickly attracts the attention of the true culprit behind the crime, an inside man at the casino who goes by the name of Skiff. Skiff dispatches Bill for his troubles and is now gunning for Bobby to silence his investigation. Meanwhile, to make matters worse, Ruppert has decided he is no longer content with his $2 million payoff and believes his only comfort will be in seeing Bobby equally disposed of. Taking a detour from Bobby's dire circumstances, we are introduced to a new character, an attractive, sexually adventurous woman named Terry, who is riding her own wave of luck as she has just won the lottery. Bobby and Terry quickly become entangled in a romantic relationship, and for me, this relationship is one of the weakest parts of the book. It's made clear that their relationship is based almost solely on physical attributes, and I just don't believe there is much depth given to the character or her relationship with Bobby. Given Bobby's position at the top of Skiff and Rupert's hit lists, he decides it's too dangerous for Terry to stay with him while he is being pursued by these evil men. He needs to settle his accounts with the gangsters before moving forward on a life with Terry. Bobby consults his dice before confronting Skiff. Of all the possibilities he considers, Bobby is adamant that he will not allow himself an option for revenge against the murder of Bill. He rationalizes that living randomly is not the same as living without morality. This decision, however, is soon taken out of Bobby's hands. The two men have an awkward encounter in the middle of a crowded restaurant. Bobby is able to buy himself more time by causing a scene, begging Skiff to kill him with dozens of witnesses onlooking. Knowing that he can't act in such a public setting, Skiff backs off to contemplate his next move. During this interim, though, Skiff is removed from the equation via Deus Ex Machina, having fallen ill with the COVID-19 virus. He dies in his hospital bed soon after. I haven't been mentioning it, but throughout the course of events, a number of references are made hinting at the lead-up to the real-world pandemic. This story does take place towards the tail end of 2019 after all. Although it can be said that Skiff's ending is a perfect representation of a proper random act of the universe, it simply doesn't land for me as a gratifying wrap-up to our main character's conflicts. If I wanted a reminder of the dark and precarious nature of the real world, I wouldn't spend all my time enveloping myself with works of fiction. Perhaps I could be more forgiving if not for the fact that our original main antagonist, Rupert, is given an even more disappointing resolution. Bobby throws his dice once again, and the result leads him to barge directly into the crime boss's main office. Surprisingly, as he makes his dramatic entrance, Bobby discovers he is too late. Rupert has already fled the country, leaving behind an empty room guarded by only a handful of his henchmen. Bobby banters with the thugs who make a half-hearted attempt to attack him, before Bobby decides to just leave. And that's it. The book closes with Bobby pondering his inevitable reunion with Terry and rolling to decide which iteration of the Three Stooges he will watch while sitting under quarantine. Despite having a strong first act, Random comes across to me as a story that just never achieves its full potential. Its high peaks are undermined by forgettable characters and an ending that can at best be described as lackluster. For these reasons, I'm unable to justify giving this book my recommendation. In my opinion, there are simply better representations of the genre to be found. As an alternative, if you're in the mood for something with a lighter tone, I would actually highly recommend the Eli Marks Mystery series by author John Gaspard. The entire 8-book set is available on Audible in 2 collected volumes. I have listened to the first 2 in the series so far, The Ambitious Card and The Bullet Catch, and have really been enjoying them. If you have recommendations for other books you would like me to read, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. I do hope you have enjoyed listening to my opinions on Random by Penn Jillette. I look forward to catching up with you in the next review. For now, this is the Fabled Lionhart, signing off.